Hey folks, welcome back, or of course, welcome to Lone Pine Tarot for the first time if you're brand new here. And as we always say in our tradition on the channel, thank you so much for joining me for our pick a card reading today with a bit of a background change, of course. Those of you familiar with my channel, we switched from the typical teal cloth to a nice autumn-themed cloth to celebrate the season as well as the beginning of October, but as you know, my readings are always viewable and timeless year-round. So without further ado, let us talk about the topic. We're actually doing a bit of a remix on an old one. Back in, I think, like November last year, I had a video that talked about something you did or you do well that you didn't expect or that you don't recognize enough. So this pick-a-card reading is going to be quite similar, although it's kind of a twist. It says, the gift you're overlooking in yourself. So we're going to help you discover something like you did or do better than you even realized, or like a gift or an action of yours that you should appreciate more. It's kind of a grab bag, kind of an open-ended question. We'll see what comes through from your spirit guides. So without further ado, let us choose our pile leaders to pick our messages with. So as we always do, calling on spirit to help us choose the pile leaders today for the highest, best good of our community. Thank you. Okay, I'm feeling drawn to this part of the deck. And that one right there. So for pile number one, your leader today is Beyond the Mind, the Heart Beats. Speaking of autumn, we have some autumn leaves in that picture. Very beautiful, falling around her head. For pile number two, your pile leader is Receiving. Also a great theme for autumn, as it is the time of the harvest. We receive after we've grown things, right? And last but not least, for pile number three, your pile leader today is, we have a hand releasing, or two hands releasing a fish, and it says, release the dark wound, let love live. So, quick reiteration, pile one is Beyond the Mind, the Heart Beats, or if you like picking by numbers, that is 21. Pile two is Receiving with number 27, and pile three over here on the right is Release the Dark Wound, Let Love Live with number 25. Though as I always say, you're perfectly welcome. Pause right here if you need more time to decide, linger a bit, listen to your gut intuition. If you're new to pick a card readings, I always have what I call a meditative moment that I feel is a good method in choosing, or as I always say too, if you're having a busy, stressful day, please follow my voice right now to take a moment out of that busy, stressful day for some peace. So close your eyes, taking a deep cleansing breath. Imagine light filling your lungs as you do so, then hold it for just a few moments. Then when you breathe it back out again, imagine breathing the negativity out of your heart space, out of your lungs, and open your eyes. And where are they drawn most first out of these three different cards? When you look at your particular pile, I guarantee you'll feel this intuition or knowing or like gut feeling down in your stomach, kind of solar plexus area, or at least that's how it always kind of manifests to me. And that is the pile I recommend you choose if you follow that method. But whatever your method, you can drop down to the description down below or the top pinned comment beneath the reading. Find the timestamp there for your pile, and I will see you in our chat about the gift you're overlooking in yourself. See you in the reading. Hello there, my wonderful pile number one. Welcome today to your pick a card reading about the gift you're overlooking in yourself. Kind of subtopic. Could possibly also be about an action of yours, or maybe multiple actions, pile number one, that you should appreciate more. It's kind of an open-ended topic, as I said in the intro. Many things might come through today, or spirit guides might just kind of hone in on one. We'll see what happens as we go through the cards. Now, as you recall, you were drawn to number 21, Beyond the Mind, the Heart Beats, and I love this card. Well, not just because it's like literally the backing for the entire deck. Also a great deck if you're not familiar with Sacred Rebels. Awesome. But I love this card because what it shows is a good balance between both the, and I know it's kind of an outdated concept to my understanding, at least in scientific understandings, or like the way that science interprets the way that our brain works, right? But I still like it because it talks about like the left brain and it talks about the right brain. The left brain meaning our logical thought, our mathematical thought, kind of maybe more masculine energy, stereotypically speaking, right? But it also talks about the right brain, which is like our creative side of our brain, our side of our brain that's really good about making ideas. And so when I see this card for you, pile one, the reason why I bring that all up is because I think one gift, out of probably the multiple we'll cover, or actions at least that you take, that you don't appreciate enough, is the way you can balance those two hemispheres, those two opposites. You might be someone in general that's very good about balancing masculine versus feminine energy. Like, you're really good on the ideation phase of things, or like the creation phase of things, nurturing ideas, those kinds of things. That's more feminine energy, right? And you, I think, have that rare ability to also branch that over into the masculine energy of, okay, logically, how do we get this idea out? How do we get this thing on the ground and running? How do we take action? That's a really good keyword with masculine energy. So, good balance of masculine and feminine energy. I think that's something that spirit guides want to tell you that you should appreciate more about yourself, because a lot of people are really good at one or the other, not so good about branching both. You're fantastic at both is what I'm feeling here intuitively, pile number 1. Because not only do we have someone who is like tapping into her intuition here in the way that she closes her eyes, she's got like that spot over her third eye, she's kind of like creating and thinking up things, right? She's even got like a bird's nest on her head, which we think of course is like, baby birds, creation, kind of motherly nurturing energy. And, even like stars being manifested over here with the galaxy, spiral galaxy specifically in the background. And there's even like strands of DNA. But then it's like she still has that masculine energy structure there, just like, DNA is a structure to the way that cells replicate. Okay, I'm not going to get too much into a scientific discussion here, but that's what I mean. It's like, it's just a good blend of both, and I think that represents you perfectly. I think that's especially maybe why you were drawn to this particular card. And we'll see how this symbolism develops, though, more with the other cards that come out in, like, synchronicity. I do see, and I love it when it happens, when you do readings, and there's, like, a lot of synchronicities that come out, because I really feel like that tends to be, like, a special emphasis that spirit guides are putting on, like, this is something you should really pay attention to, but... So, just in summary, which is just the pile leader, right? Very good at the logical side of things, very good at the creative side of things. Maybe earlier in life you kind of struggled with that, but I think at least at this point in your path, pile number 1, you're very good about balancing the both. So, let's look at your archetypes cards. We're going to draw some oracle cards to begin. And we will get to your tarot spread as well. I'm kind of open-ending the way that I draw cards in, like, the certain order. Or ad-libbing maybe is a better way of putting that for today's reading. But I am feeling drawn to the archetypes deck for you first. Oh, definitely right there. Definitely strong intuitive abilities. I'm also feeling off of you, pile number 1. Although you probably already know that, but at the same time, it's the fact that it came out as like spirit guide saying, you should really just lean into that more, appreciate that more about yourself. Maybe sometimes you second guess your intuition, even though it tends to be quite sharp. Things like that. And then for your archetypes, we have, well, what do you know? You have the mystic. I was like, I think you've got really strong intuition, pile number 1. Bam, there it comes. I don't believe in coincidences because we have the mystic here. Light attribute revels in intimate union with the divine. There is a shadow attribute of a delusional rapport with the divine, but because this is a gift reading, we're talking more about the light attribute here. Very connected to the divine, very connected to the mystical side of life. Like I said, I would not be surprised if you're intuitive, and you probably already know that. I was like, you're not going to be surprised by what I say, but it's good for spirit to point it out, though. Okay. Even with the beautiful colors of purple on her. Purple is a very spiritual color. Let's look at your second archetypes card. And then we have King. Light attributes. Enlightened, benevolent leadership benefiting those in your charge. Okay, we have leadership energy too. And look at that purple coming out again. So not only do we have one symbolism of purple with the mystic, which is like, the mystical, spiritual, right? We have the other symbolism of purple with King. Maybe your favorite color is purple, pile number 1. Maybe that's why so much of it is coming out. But we, of course, also associate purple with royalty, hence why it's in the King card, I think. At least in European cultures, purple was considered a royal color. A color that only nobility would wear, at least at certain cultures at certain times, mostly, like, think medieval or Renaissance, I would say. I wonder if you've had a lot of past lives in that time period and that area of the world. And or maybe even right now you have a lot of fascination with that time period and culture, a lot about like medieval, Renaissance, European cultures, things like that. Because of that association. And so I think too, there's a way that you carry yourself that almost feels noble. Feels, you have like that presence that's very, what's the word? Like, not an in-your-face leadership, but in a very subtle leadership, I almost feel, pile one, that the reason why that is because you are, I'm going to use kind of a cliche term, but I like it because it works, right? It's called an old soul. And basically what an old soul means to me, specifically my interpretation, is someone that has lived a lot of different reincarnations here on Earth, if you believe in reincarnation theory like I do. And basically what that means is that you have had a lot of experience. You're someone who knows human life, I mean, not necessarily like the back of your hand, but I think in terms of your spiritual development, especially because of your abilities, right? You are... and I hate to use the word more advanced because that kind of sounds like, there's appreciation and beauty at all different levels of where we are on the spiritual growth ladder, as I like to put it. But you specifically, pile one, you're more advanced, I think. I get that feeling off of you. And I often get that feeling off of our community. I don't know if maybe just... There's a lot of old souls in our community, but you especially here because of that. So you have that leadership quality that is attuned with that old soulness. So that's another thing that spirit guides are saying you should really appreciate about yourself more, pile one, because it not just is something that, acknowledging that about yourself can heighten confidence, right? But it can also help you lean into that more, especially for other people's benefit, because like it says, it benefits those in your charge. I mean, you're not just a leader, but you're also a benevolent leader. And there aren't many of those. There's a lot of leaders that aren't so benevolent. A lot of people that seek power really shouldn't have power. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the filter we often find in how life works on planet Earth, as we all know. A lot of people that have power should not have it. Because, unfortunately, a lot of the people that seek power are the ones that seek it for bad reasons. But you, pile number one, as the card says, that benevolent leadership, spiritual leadership as well, because of that mysticism. So I would not be surprised to or shocked if you're also into tarot, doing it yourself, or maybe you also do tarot readings, or maybe you're also a tarot YouTuber like I am. Someone who is very good about leading other people in that manner. And once again, we do see that opposites, that perpendicular quality of, we have the feminine over here with the mystic, receiving messages from creation, and even a feminine figure here, but then over here we have the masculine figure of the king with leadership. So we have that balance once again of masculine versus feminine energy. That's another synchronicity I'm seeing here. So that's another theme coming through. Let's look at your Elle Qui Oracle here. I meant to shuffle earlier, but I just kept blabbing. That's okay. Okay. We go the path we go on at the pace we're meant to go. Anything else, Spirit, about pile one that you think that they should appreciate more? And maybe this is coming up, pile one, because recently you've been doubting your own leadership abilities. Maybe you've been doubting your intuitive abilities. Maybe you felt like you haven't been as good about balancing the masculine and the feminine, but it's like Spirit saying, well, be easier on yourself, pile one, you are. And we have She Who Calms, Jenna. Stillness, purity, and quiet. Yes, okay, so a bit of an introverted sort, perhaps, that often happens with people who are spiritual or intuitive. Not always. I feel like that's kind of an unfortunate stereotype, that a lot of people that are spiritual are introverted. There's a lot of extroverted people that are very spiritual too, right? Just in the nature of who they are in terms of their ability to connect to other souls, being extroverted, right? But this specifically speaks to me of, well, I mean, like it says, pile one, we have stillness, purity, and quiet. So maybe you're, as I said, more introverted, a bit more of a quiet soul. But you shine almost like this Jenna figure, being that light in the darkness, just like her white dress stands out amongst the dark wood that she's walking through. And it's interesting because she's also walking through a winter woodland. It's not an easy, happy summer forest during the day with sunshine and rainbows and bunnies and butterflies. She's walking through the forest at the dead of winter. Everything is just cold around her. There's ice, almost looks like a frozen pond beneath her feet. She has, is that a barn owl? Looks like a barn owl up there too. And of course, barn owls are also, owls in general, depending on the culture, but at least to my understanding, in general, are symbols of messages from the other side, or messengers, I should say, more as a noun, right? Messengers from the other side, beings that kind of waffle on the edge of life and death in terms of their symbolism, okay? kind of like veil walkers. They're in between. Maybe that's because of your abilities being so advanced and honed, pile number 1. You're almost kind of like an owl that way, being that messenger from the other side. You might even be like a medium. Like mediumship might be your specialty or kind of your wheelhouse. And then 2, and once again, I just think of the leadership quality here. Now, she's not necessarily like nobility or a queen or a princess, but when you look at her, I mean, she looks very regal. She looks very, she's a leader, but she's not a loud one, as is with the keyword quiet, stillness. Someone who shows the way with a quiet lantern of light rather than a loud voice. That's another part of yourself that Spirit is saying you should really appreciate here, pile 1. Maybe you kind of see your quietness as a weakness. Maybe you think, I should speak out more, or I regret times in life that I did not speak out more, which that does happen a lot, especially when you're introverted. Sometimes, when you're introverted, you feel like people kind of talk over you a lot. But even though you feel like, perhaps, pile 1, if you feel like this, take it as it resonates. Even if you feel like people don't hear you just because you don't speak as much, Spirit is saying they do hear you. They hear you through your body language. They hear you through your quiet leadership. Everything you are that is loud on the most low decibel in the best way possible. Okay. Let's keep looking at your cards. Let's look at your Sacred Destiny, and then we'll do your tarot spread at the end. I usually do tarot at the first beginning of each reading, but we're going to flip-flop here, and we're going to do Oracle first. So the Sacred Destiny, this might be more of an advice card in terms of how to appreciate these things about yourself more, but we'll see. Spirit, anything else you want to say about what they should appreciate about themselves more, what gifts they have, actions they've taken? So that's another thing in terms of actions, pile 1. Any time in your life that you have had quiet leadership, that is really something you should, like actions you've taken with that quality shining is something that you should pat yourself on the back more, Spirit is saying here. Then for the Sacred Destiny, we have taking risks. Okay, you're also bold. There's times where you should appreciate yourself more for how bold you are. This almost makes me think of the Fool card in tarot. Would be interested to see if that does pop up in your spread. Taking risks is, is that a hawk technically? It might be a falcon, I'm not sure. But is flying off, I believe that is called a butte. Like the rocky kind of plateau that goes up above the desert. You know what I mean? I think it's called a butte. Flying off of the butte and then going and soaring over the land. And it looks like it's just like flat desert plateau here. Almost kind of looks like the Grand Canyon a bit. And taking risks. Yeah, it's like that quality of the Fool, of someone who's not afraid to venture into the unknown, who is not afraid to jump over the edge of what they think is possible. And that, I think that's another attribute that I see a lot in old souls, because you've lived so many lives, pile number 1. It's almost like when you have played, I want to use a video game reference because, I like video games, so we'll use that. Sorry if it doesn't, maybe not your favorite metaphor, but you know what I mean. You'll get it. Even if you don't play video games. The metaphor I want to use is like when someone has played a video game a lot. Like, let's just say Mario. First, original Super Mario Brothers. Let's say, you have, your ability to play over that very first level and any more levels after that, pile 1, is a lot more honed than someone that has maybe only touched that game and played those levels a few times. And the metaphor here is playing the game, so to speak, is like how many lives that you've lived. Okay, you're someone that's played a lot of Super Mario Brothers in terms of being an old soul. And so I think that's why, the taking risks thing pops up here. At least part of the reason is because to you, it's not like you view it as a game. I think you still hold a lot of weight in the decisions that you make. You're very mature and wise in that way. But at the same time, a lot of people in life hesitate a lot. A lot of people never take strides towards what they really want. They let their dreams fester and die. It is really just an unfortunate, sad fact. That it really is a life lesson in and of itself, is to not let your dreams die. Especially when caving to the outside pressures of how, culture, being human psychology, etc., those things, all those outside pressures, peer pressure, etc., economy, money, things like that. But you're such an old soul that you're like, well, whatever. You care. You weigh those risks, but you're not afraid to take them either. probably because of that quiet leadership. And so I think a part of that too is Spirit is saying you should appreciate the way that you shine as that quiet lantern to other people in the way that you take those risks. And this is kind of even leading into a life purpose reading here, so I apologize if that's not what you came here for, but, it kind of leans into life purpose, right? So part of your life purpose here, I'm feeling, is that you shine that lantern of light, as I was saying, to other people in terms of how to go after their dreams. Even though it's not, as I said, you're not a megaphone, pile one. You're not a blast in someone's face of, you should do this or you should do that. It's that quiet leadership we talked about with the king and the mystic of showing by example. That's a really good example of quiet leadership. People will look at you and be like, well, pile one is doing it, so why can't I? Or pile one was brave enough and, maybe they gave me some sage advice just through leading by example, so why can't I do that too? You're kind of a change maker. You're kind of someone that inspires change through that silent leadership. And you should appreciate yourself for that more too. Getting back to the title of the reading, right? But let's look at your tarot spread here and bring everything together into form. So, very masculine, feminine energy balanced. That's one thing they said you should appreciate yourself for more. Your spiritual abilities, your quiet leadership, we talked about quite a lot. The way that you shine even though you're not loud. How you take risks. How you inspire others. That's a really good keyword to use with you, pile number one. Okay, excuse me. My voice is a bit scratchy today. Right there. Okay. Thanks, Spirit. So first up, we have the Four of Pentacles, reserving your energy, reserving your resources. We'll talk about everything in totality after we're done drawing. We have the Chariot. Yeah. Taking risks. Very connected. We'll talk about that. Yep. Not afraid to drive forward. We have the Knight of Pentacles reversed. Okay, so maybe something especially underappreciated there being reversal. God, look at all these pentacles, pile number one. You have the Eight of Pentacles. Hard workers. You work really hard. Look at that. You are smart with money. You're very smart with money, I feel like. And what did I just say before pile number one? I was like, I would not be shocked if you got the Fool. With taking risks, because that's literally what the Fool means in tarot, is a risk taker, someone that ventures into the unknown, unafraid. Even though it's, he's kind of on the edge of a cliff, so there's a bit of a, be wary of risks message with the Fool. But it's very Fool-oriented oracle card, so that's very specially emphasized here in this reading for you, pile one. Look at that synchronicity. I was like, would not be shocked if you got the Fool, and bam, there it is. Okay, so we have lots of pentacles. What that means from an overarching perspective here, pile one, is that you're someone that has a lot of earth energy, and someone that has a lot of gifts or things to appreciate about themselves with earth energy. Well, maybe you even are an earth sign, at least like your sun sign, or a lot of earth placements in your astrological chart. That's another way that can manifest, pile one. But two, outside of astrological correspondences, we also have very earthly energy, someone who's down to earth, someone who is very good with material things. And it's funny because you are someone that had so many messages about being, mystical and, leaning into more masculine energy as well, which masculine elements are air and fire. Earth is more of a feminine energy, right? But it's not like you're not materialistic at all, because you are such a soul tempered by the experiences that you've had in different incarnations, but as well as like your spirituality. You get it. You get how to get money. You get how to work really hard. Look at that Eight of Pentacles. That's the hard at work card. But it's not like it's the end all and be all of who you are, even though you're very good at it. Okay, you're like, well, I already graduated that class in all my past lives, so I'm good at it now, but it's not my main focus. But they are saying, though, by having that come out prominently, pile one, you should pat yourself on the back more for your accomplishments in earthly things. So with your career, with your finances, with your health. That's sometimes I read Pentacles as a health suit too, and your home in general too. The way that you can nurture things, the way that you, I'm trying to think of other keywords with earth energy, nurturing, creation, We see that too. But you do have a bit of a balance here with the Chariot. I can't remember what elemental correspondence the Chariot or the Fool has. Chariot, I would guess either fire or air, which are the masculine elements. But that speaks to that drive we were talking about with taking risks. Okay, someone that can drive forward and then, let's see, looking at everything in totality here, we talked about the elemental correspondences, yes. So the Four of Pentacles, pile number 1. Let's just start at the very beginning before I kind of jumped to the Chariot, but let's go back to the beginning. So we have the Four of Pentacles. That is someone that knows how to reserve their resources. They're saying you should pat yourself on the back more for the way that you're very good about your finances in terms of saving. So, sometimes maybe it leans into you save too much and you don't spend enough on yourself, and then you lean into like burnout and not enough self-care and whatnot, and not enough enjoying life. Though with it being upright, I would say this is in balance. You're pretty good about saving money, but it's not so much to like a negative effect. You're someone that's good at reserving your energy and time as well, I think. And then, yes, the Chariot is someone that knows how to drive forward, someone that has a lot of control. It's almost like that regality that we talked about with that King energy in the very beginning with that Archetypes card. Someone that can really tame and put the reins on the chaos of life. Also, too, with it being the two Sphinx here, we have, I believe they're both feminine. But I do think of, in terms of their coloring, you have the black one and then you have the white one. That's like taking the reins on two opposites. So once again, we see kind of a symbolic synchronicity there with like opposites of like the masculine versus the feminine. Okay, someone that is very good about maybe even bringing people together that are from different walks of life, good at balancing between opposites, people that maybe don't necessarily get along. You're like a good mediator between them, or maybe even that's like your career pile 1. Maybe you're a mediator literally, or like you work with trying to bring people together, like couples therapy, or I'm trying to think of other things. Something along those lines, or you'd be really good at it if you don't do that particular thing right now. And then the Knight of Pentacles reversed. So we do have our 1 reversal here in the middle with the Knight of Pentacles reversed. What that can mean is something that they're really emphasizing that you don't acknowledge enough about yourself, that you should appreciate more. And that is, Knight of Pentacles reversed in that interpretation can mean somebody that doesn't appreciate just how much action they do take towards their material goals. Also, someone that doesn't appreciate the way that they go about things in a very dedicated, thoughtful way. A Knight of Pentacles is not someone that rushes forward. He's not a Knight of Swords where he's just like, boom, off to the races. He's not a Knight of Wands where he's, also really fast, right? He's not even at a steady trot like the Knight of Cups is. He's at a standstill. He's someone that really logically thinks through everything before he takes that action. So sometimes you might beat yourself up. Maybe that's why it's reversed. You might beat yourself up about like, oh, I'm not fast enough, or oh, I'm too indecisive. I don't go. Maybe other people have even said that to you, like, well, you take too long to decide. Those kind of things. Not so nice things, maybe, but it's actually a strength though that Spirit is talking to you about. They're saying you really need to acknowledge that because it's in reverse. So, pile 1. If there is any big piece of advice with this reading, it's please acknowledge that more in the way that the strengths that you have because of the way that you take action through that very slow and steady wins the race kind of philosophy on life. Then, of course, we have the Eight of Pentacles, quite straightforward, as I said. You're a hard worker. Please acknowledge that more. Please appreciate that more. And then we have the Fool at the very end, that taking risks. You are a leader through the way that you take those risks. You're not afraid to begin new journeys. And that might even resonate on a spiritual level because you've lived so many lives, I feel, pile number 1 intuitively. The Fool is, yes, it can mean a material, physical, literally starting a new adventure in your current life. But a Fool, being 0, he's the beginning and the end of tarot. We're a fool at the beginning, we're a fool at the end. It's a never-ending, repeating cycle of always being reborn again, always returning back to that newborn state, that newborn optimism. And it's like you have that in droves, I feel like, pile 1, or you should appreciate yourself more for it if you don't. Even the white rose that he holds in his hand is like a symbol of innocence. He's not even looking where he's going. He's like, I know, I'll be fine. I know where my steps are going to go. I'm on this new adventure, and I'm not afraid. So appreciate yourself more for the way that you do take risks. And it's funny because you have that opposite of, oh, I go too slow about making decisions. Oh, but I do take risks. You have a good balance between the two, pile 1. You can take those risks because you're very good about thinking everything through methodically. Okay? A lot of people take risks. They don't think it through. They're like, la-di-da. You're the fool that always thinks it through very carefully. So appreciate about that, or that about yourself more, pile 1. Let's see, anything else? I believe that is everything. So just in summary, as I said, female versus masculine, you have great balance there. Quiet leadership. You're great about taking risks, but you're really smart about it. You're really good about driving forward, tamping down chaos, lots of spiritual abilities. I think mediumship is really the main thing that resonates, but of course that can manifest in different ways. Clairaudience, clairsentience, remote viewing, astral projection, etc., those types of things. And just very strong in the earth. Spiritual in a good way that makes you lean away from materialism. But even though you're not materialistic, doesn't mean that you're not also good with earthly financial things. So that's another thing that came out prominently too. So, very beautiful, pile number 1. That was your reading for today about the gifts you overlook in yourself, or qualities or actions, etc. I hope, of course, most of all that you liked it, it helped you, and it resonated with your own story. And if so, please like the video, comment down below. I always love hearing your feedback and how it resonates. And as I always say too, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. That just helps the channel out a little bit with that tiny button click from you to keep the dream of the channel alive through helping people with tarot. Thank you so much if you decide to do so, of course. And as we always say in our tradition, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next reading. Bye, pile 1. Hello there, my wonderful pile number 2. Welcome today to your pick a card reading about the gift you're overlooking in yourself, aka what literal gifts that maybe you should appreciate more. It could also be a reading that covers, things that you did or do better than you realized, or actions that you've taken that Spirit wants you to pat yourself on the back for. Kind of an open-ended topic, as I said in the intro. We'll see where it leads us. But I can tell you right off the bat, with your pile leader that you were drawn to, intuitively, the first thing that stood out to me was, this is going to sound weird. I don't know why it's being mentioned specifically, but Spirit was saying, there's something about the soothingness of your voice. And they might mean that in the literal physical way. Maybe you have a very kind of soothing, slow, or not slow, but like soft, maybe soft is a better term to use, voice. But it can also mean in the metaphorical way where, you're a healer, I feel like, but you're a healer in the way of how you speak to people. You're that air energy. Maybe you even are like an Aquarius, Libra, Gemini, etc. But in the way of, like, the things that you say are a healing medicine or a healing balm to the heart of others. So that's what I'm hearing first, is a healer of the tongue, a healer of the heart through the spoken word, or maybe even written word too. One methodology of communicating is not better than another, of course. It also just depends on your personality, right? Extroverts might want to speak more, introverts might want to write more. In either way, that can manifest, literally how you speak to others. It can manifest in, maybe you're a writer. Maybe you heal the heart through the way that you write things. Even music, too, of course, requires the written word in terms of lyrics. So there's something about that there. And too, with receiving, lots of green energy in this card. It's literally someone who's like putting water or tea to her lips, and maybe you're a good cook as well. I know it's also maybe kind of an odd thing to bring up. Maybe you're even drinking tea right now as we speak. But yeah, with the cooking thing, I know it's an odd thing to bring up. But when you think about it, what is really cooking on a spiritual level? It is gathering materials together to nurture oneself and others. So we have that nurturing theme come up again here with that symbolism that's coming out and what I'm hearing intuitively. So a very healing soul, very green energy with everything coming through. Maybe you just are a very natural healer too. Someone very nature oriented perhaps. Someone very, maybe leaning more feminine energy. It doesn't matter what your gender is. Everyone has feminine and masculine. Sometimes we just naturally lean more towards one or the other. This screams more feminine energy to me, especially even with the message of receiving, because feminine energy is the energy of receiving rather than giving, okay? I mean, it is kind of giving with nurturing as well, but receiving things is feminine, so Very beautiful pile number 2. And even here with the way that the light swirls from the drink, it almost makes me think of bars in like a music stanza. Or like a music, I should know this, I was in choir for like over a decade. You know what I'm talking about, the bars that they set notes on, okay? Like you have the treble clef over here, and then you have all the notes here from, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, etc., you know what I mean? Makes me think of that, like the structure of sheet music. Very beautiful. A healer with the tongue. And if you already know that, Spirit is basically saying you should appreciate that more about yourself and your healing energy. So I'm actually going to start your reading today outside of your pile leader with oracle cards. I usually start with tarot, but we're going to do oracle first, pile 2. So let's look at the Archetypes cards to begin. We're going to shuffle that again because that wasn't my favorite shuffle in the world. Okay, are we ready? Nope. This deck is kind of hard to shuffle. It's very stiff, I guess is the word I want to use, but 2 shuffles should be good. All right, Spirit, what do you want to say about pile 2 in terms of what they should appreciate about themselves more? Action, deed, qualities of their soul, gifts that they have. That one for sure. Okay. This one says, pick me, we're picking it. Why? And I meant to pick 2 in a row, so here we go. We have the 2. We have monk and nun, and we have Midas versus miser. So monk versus nun, and we'll just focus on the light attributes because this is a reading about your gifts or things that you should appreciate more. Monk nun says, light attribute, selfless devotion and single-minded dedication to spirit. So look at that, selflessness. We have that nurturing energy pop up again. We have, literally a monk and a nun. And then over here on the right, we have Midas versus miser, light attributes. Entrepreneurial or creative ability to turn anything to gold. Delight in sharing life's riches. We have that green energy again, like I was talking about with your receiving card. Yes, healing energy for sure. We do see that a bit with monk and nun. And I think to my understanding, I'm not 100% familiar with how the lives of monks and nuns work, unfortunately. So anyone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below. But so I will admit my ignorance on that. But I think a lot of times they did play healing roles. I think they did heal people. At least nuns, I think, might have. And so maybe it's you tend to have this ability to heal people in a spiritual way. Maybe that's part of where this healing through the spoken word comes about. Maybe you even like work in a way of like professing spirit to others. Maybe you literally do tarot readings like I do, or tarot YouTube, etc. Or maybe you do like you speak to like a group of some sort in a way. I want to say like kind of like how a pastor does or a priest, etc. But I don't know, it doesn't necessarily have to be within like the Christian context, of course. It can be in many different interpretations and ways. Maybe even it's just through the written word, through a blog. Maybe it's even through, you speak about spirit through music. Even if your topic technically isn't always, this about spirit or this about spirit guides or ancestors or this divine being, etc. It speaks of spirit in the way that it's created or the way that it resonates with other people, okay? It heals their soul. It heals their hearts. You have a very good ability with that pile, too. And then Midas miser, entrepreneurial, creative ability to turn anything into gold. So we have creative ability, so that makes me think, once again, of music and writing, okay? Very creative passions and pursuits. But also entrepreneurial, which speaks of an independence of sorts, right? An entrepreneur is someone that stakes out on their own. They don't follow the drumbeat of someone else's business. They're like, I'm going to do my own thing, okay? So maybe you are an entrepreneur, and if so, pile 2, your spirit guides are saying you really need to pat yourself on the back more for that, because I think the reason why is because it's very resonant with who you are as a being. And when we live our lives in resonance with who we are at our soul level, that's when we are closest to spirit, right? When we are in purest expression of who we are on the level of our souls, our spirits, etc. That is when we are closest to spirit. So you're not I don't think what I'm hearing you're not necessarily like a professor of spirit in terms of the direct here's my Bible, here's my Quran, read this thing, or here's my my pamphlet, or like you're like, here's my speech. Maybe not necessarily that, but it's more along the lines of indirect profession of spirit, of belief and connection. Okay. You're the way spirit speaks in indirect ways is one phrase I would like to use there. Yes, very good at entrepreneurship. A delight in sharing life's riches. So that also talks about selflessness, pile number 2. You need to pat yourself back more on your selflessness. Or pat yourself on the back. Oh, I did say that right. I was like, pat yourself for your selflessness. Well, that too, I guess. Pat yourself on the back for your selflessness is what I meant to say. Don't know if I said it right. I don't know. Because, it's the opposite of what a miser is. A miser is someone who like holds on to their money and they're like, no one touched my resources, etc. But you're someone who's like very giving, okay? Which is also a spiritual quality. So you almost feel like a light worker in a very unconventional way. An agent on earth in a very unconventional way, but important because what that speaks to, pile 2, is you're someone who reaches people that might not necessarily have their internal radios tuned to the traditional channels of spirituality, okay? There's someone, people that you reach, I think, that you should appreciate yourself more, are people that are maybe tuned to different frequencies. And so you talk to them and you heal their hearts on those frequencies, even in ways you don't necessarily understand or expect or recognize. And that is doing spiritual work, be it through music, be it through the written word, as we said, be it through healing others, nurturing, even cooking for other people too. Maybe your job is related to cooking or music. Maybe you help serve food at a lunchroom, or maybe you are a chef, or if you're a parent, or you cook for your family, even if it's not a job, right? Technically, that is another way that spirit speaks through you, pile 2. Okay. Very generous, very nurturing, feminine energy, as I said before. Let's look at your Elle Qui next, this deck. Spirit, anything else you want to say to pile 2 about who they are, what they should appreciate more about themselves? Very feminine energy, selfless souls. Very selfless, that was emphasized twice here. Selfless devotion and delight in sharing life's riches. So, not materialistic whatsoever. Once again, you're like pile 1, and I said this to pile 1 too. I don't know if it's this particular community, but there's always like a lot of old souls in these readings that pop up for our community from my channel, and I'm like, I don't know if maybe we just tended to connect a lot here or what, but you feel like an old soul to me as well, just like pile 1 did today. So we have Konskia. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. My apologies. She who whispers secrets, confessions, and a confidant. Ooh, the way that people trust you. The way that people trust the way that you keep their secrets. You might find too, pile 2. Not just, it's interesting, we have the emphasis on lips again, just like we did with receiving. You're very good at, not just through the way that you communicate to others and heal them, but now we're seeing the opposite too, where you're very good at also tuning into other people's radio frequencies and hearing what they're broadcasting in terms of the way that people trust you. I think it's because of your selfless healing energy. You ever have, and this happened to me when I was a lot younger, like high school especially for some reason, but you ever have experiences or times in life where it feels like everyone kind of treats you in your social circle or your family as like their confidant? Like, I don't want to say like their therapist, because that's like a negative connotation, and I don't mean it in terms of like, well, not that like, therapy is bad, or not that being a therapist is bad, but usually when people are like, oh, people treat me like a therapist, it's like a negative connotation. But what I mean here is more in a positive light, pile 2, where even just the way you listen heals other people. It's not just in the way you speak to them, it's the way you listen, just like how a therapist heals through the power of listening. So that's another thing they're saying you should pat yourself on the back for, pile 2, is the way that you listen to other people, the way that you hold their secrets, the way that you let them confess, I think it's your energy that maybe invites, and maybe it's even like people out of the blue kind of confess odd things to you. You're like, why are you telling me this? Like, why do you trust me with this random thing that, I mean, even if it feels like like they're just an acquaintance or maybe even a stranger. Like, why do people just like dump this on me? Like, where'd this come from? Well, that's what it is, pile 2, is because your soul is like that radio that not only broadcasts to different frequencies, but it also can pick up on many different frequencies too. I get the feeling that might come from either a lot of past lives lived from many different perspectives or types of, people, social class, experiences, careers, etc. The many different ways that the human soul can manifest itself through previous incarnations, but also maybe even in this current life, you have lived a lot of different perspectives, or in general, you're just very open-minded. I think that's an open-mindedness too that they're pointing out here quite prominently. Okay. Just very nurturing listeners. Beautiful qualities, pile number 2. Let's look at your sacred destiny. People know they can trust you. They can sense that light in you, pile 2. That's why. Oh, I was just like shuffling that one last card multiple times. I don't know what that is about. Apparently I'm not the best at shuffling today. That's okay. I do what I can with my tiny small hands in terms of shuffling. Right there. Okay. Then we have security. Look at that, pile 2. It's like being a warm fire that other people can gather around and tell their story. Just like we have done since time immemorial. That is the earliest form of connection, right? Was people huddling around fires and saying, here's my story. That's another thing. I think people tell you their story a lot, pile 2. We talked about that with the whispers with Koncia, right? But it's like that security you give, you're like a shelter to others. You're like a safe space to other people. That you should appreciate yourself more. You're a shelter against the rain. You're a warmth against the cold. I'm trying to think of like other ways that can manifest. And then too, we have the idea of storytelling here with the cave painting. Because that wasn't that like the earliest novel was cave paintings, right? It might have been stories about, here, I hunted this mammoth today, and this is what it looked like when, I shot my arrow, etc. Or whatever, different things that cave paintings can depict. But that is storytelling in a way, pile 2. Even if it was just the very earliest forms of it. Yeah, the fire that other people tell their stories around because they feel so comforted and safe when they do so. That's really emphasized here, and I apologize, I keep repeating it, but Spirit keeps repeating it too, and I'm just saying what they're saying. And then I'm trying to think, there's something else coming through here about security in a different facet. Not just the way people feel secure around you, but also it's like that nurturing energy again, but in the way that fire can be nurturing. Where it's like even going back to the cooking thing again, like literally, what was the first thing we cooked over? It was, it wasn't a gas range, it was a fire, right? Over a campfire, bring out the mammoth leg and roast it. It's like that nurturing energy again. I'm going to draw your tarot cards. We're going to see if any synchronicities come out here, pile 2, but I won't linger on that card too long because it's kind of a similar message, but we'll see if your tarot cards say anything more about it. All right, Spirit, what else do you want to say? Okay, we've got death, which doesn't mean death typically. The first card, though, technically that came out together with it was the Ace of Swords reversed. Oh. So the reversals, the way I read reversals with this particular kind of reading, pile 2, is something that is really heavily emphasized that you do not appreciate about yourself enough. Okay, so we'll talk about that as the Ace of Swords. We'll talk about the very beginning of the tarot spread once I'm done drawing the other cards. And then yes, we have death, the power of change. Here you have the ability to change others. Next up, we have, ooh, interesting. We have the Seven of Swords. Now, that's typically a negative connotation, but of course, with this kind of reading, it's supposed to be a positive one. We'll see what else pops out with it. We have the Two of Wands reversed. Okay, so another maybe emphasis on something you should really appreciate more that you maybe isn't even knowable or that you don't know about yourself yet. And then we have the Page of Cups reversed. Yes. Okay, so a few reversals. Kind of like the advice part of this reading. So yes, in the very beginning we have the Ace of Swords reversed pile 2. And what that means in reversal with this type of reading is that you have this ability to generate new ideas. I think that's maybe where this entrepreneurial or creative ability comes about. And also it bodes well for someone who's very talented with tongue in terms of the spoken or the written word, which we talked about quite a lot before in the very beginning of the reading. You really need to emphasize and appreciate that more about yourself because that's reversed right there. You have great ideas, pile 2. You need to cherish and appreciate yourself more for your idea creation ability. Okay, also the way that you tell truths, the way that you seek truth too. That's another interpretation of the Ace of Swords. Okay, also cutting through the fog of life with intelligence. So there's a bit of an intelligent energy here, especially with the 2 swords having popped out being air cards in terms of elemental correspondences. So that's one thing that's really emphasized. And let's talk about the other really emphasized ones. We also have the Two of Wands here reversed towards the end. And a Two of Wands reversed in this type of reading can mean that you really don't appreciate yourself enough for your planning. A Two of Wands card is all about someone who is very forward thinking, who looks ahead. Okay? You're someone who like maybe you think you don't plan ahead enough. Maybe you think you're more spontaneous than you really are. And I mean that in a positive way, pile 2, in terms of like you're really good about, I think you plan things more than you expect, or you plan things more than you think you do. But you probably do it more on an instinctual level than you do on like an active planning level like some people do. And so it seems like things go well out of mistake or luck or chance, but really it is your instinctual ability to plan things through in an even unconscious way that works really well for you. Okay, you need to appreciate that more. Also, just your planning ability in general. And then we have the Page of Cups reversed. Now, that's interesting. Sometimes it can mean a surprise because of the random fish that pops out of the cup. That's one of the original more traditional interpretations of that card. But in the way that I sometimes interpret it in a modern way is it's the exploration of our feelings. You might, I almost wonder, pile 2, if you tend to be quite an emotional person. And I think you might think of it as a weakness because it's reversed. You might think, I feel too much. I wish I was more numb to things. I wish I wasn't such a bleeding heart, or I wish I wasn't such a sensitive creature. Maybe you are a highly sensitive person, right? Especially with how spiritual you are, is at least when I'm feeling off this reading. Very common, right? Highly sensitive people, very common in that type of arena. And so I think you look at it as, oh man, I'm a crybaby, or like maybe you watch movies a lot and you tear up easily, or you read books and you tear up easily, or people tell you their plights and you tear up really easily. And you might think of it as a weakness, pile 2, but really what it is it's a strength. And Spirit is, because it's reversed, they're saying you really, really need to appreciate that about yourself more, because that is the method of delivery, the vehicle through which you provide that listening and speaking to others, and that selflessness, that nurturing energy is because of that sensitive, emotional heart that you have. Okay, so don't feel ashamed for that. Don't feel ashamed for crying, quote unquote, too much. No such thing. Don't feel ashamed for feeling, quote unquote, too much. No such thing. Okay. Now, the upright ones. If we have the Seven of Swords upright, and typically the Seven of Swords is about getting away with something. Sometimes it's the trickster card, or being sneaky, doing something kind of deceptive. But reading it in a reading like this, pile 2, I almost feel like that's Spirit saying you're very clever. You're very smart. We did see that a bit with the Ace of Swords, but this is being emphasized. You're someone who knows how to do things with subtlety. I think that is maybe the methodology through which you accomplish things in life is not through brash, I'm going to trump after my goals with really loud steel-toed boots. You're someone that does it in more kind of subtle ways. And that, once again, is feminine energy in its strongest, is doing things in the subtle way, doing things in ways that aren't bold and brash and in your face. Okay, so appreciate that about yourself more. Also, death. Now, typically we look at death, and if you're not familiar with tarot, you're like, oh god, that's a scary card. No, most of the time it's not literally about death. Sometimes it can be, but not always. with this interpretation and this spread, though, this type of reading, I would read death as you're someone who is very good about changing others or inspiring change in others. I think through that creative ability that you have with either music or writing, etc., the way that you listen to others inspires change. The way you feel, make them feel secure and you heal them inspires change. I'm hearing, Pile 2, if you don't already work in a field like this, you would be very good in a field where you heal people through the power to help themselves change for the better. Okay, sometimes that, maybe it is like being a therapist, as through the power of healing through listening is what a therapist does, right? It can also mean, like fitness trainer, you help people get better fit through positive change that way, or maybe it's even you help people through the change of death. Maybe you have a career, or might be even linked heavily to, or strong, you'd have strong ability or skill in, if you don't do it already, something related to helping people with the transition of change, death, so hospice, people that, sometimes even in spiritual ways, like when you think of like a traditional, let's just say pastor, they do help people through death in terms of, connecting spirituality to the process of going from one world into the next. Pastors do speak at funerals or, insert different spiritual leaders here. It doesn't have to be a pastor. That's, just the Christian interpretation, right? But, in all ways, though, just to summarize that whole card, you help people through the process of change, through that healing of the heart. Okay. So please, please, please appreciate that about yourself more. And all of these things that we've discovered and talked about today, Pile 2. Big healers, great listeners, very nurturing, very powerful feminine energy here. If there is one piece of advice, I just want to remind you, it is to not feel so bad about the way that you are sensitive or feel your emotions. If Spirit were to give you one little tidbit today on, say like not room for improvement necessarily, but to reduce your shame in that area, they would say reduce your shame here, appreciate it more with that Page of Cups reversed as we talked about earlier, okay? Beautiful. So that's your reading for today by wonderful Pile 2. I hope that it, of course, as I always say, helped you, resonated, you liked it. If so, please like the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. That everything, liking, commenting, subscribing, helps the channel bit by bit to help keep the dream of the mission of the channel alive, helping people through tarot, etc., enlightening, empowering, all those nice healing words. Speaking of being a healer, right? And as is our tradition on the channel, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next reading by Pile 2. Hello there, my wonderful Pile number 3. Welcome today to your pick a card reading about the gifts you're overlooking in yourself, or potentially actions that you've taken that you should appreciate yourself more, or something you do or did better than you even realized. As I said in the intro, it's kind of an open-ended sort of topic. We'll see what comes through, but we will talk about your pile leader. As you recall, you were drawn to number 25, release the dark wound, let love live. So what I hear intuitively about your gift, things that you do better than you think you do, pile 3, is your ability to heal. We have, of course, it's interesting, there's what's the word? Symbolism, that's the word I want to use. The symbolism here in the card of life. We have the fish swimming, we have the hands reaching forward, letting it go. But then we also have symbolism of death here in the skeletal imagery of the end tail of the fish, and also the bones and the hands of the fingers. Okay. And so I think you're someone, and if you are spiritually attuned in terms of like you work on your abilities and whatnot, you might be very good at mediumship because of that symbolism of being on the cusp of both life and death. Mediumship, if you're not familiar, of course, is, like I said, being able to reach beyond to the dead from the living. So if that resonates with you, pile 3, perhaps mediumship is one ability you need to appreciate more about yourself. And then 2, with release the dark wound, it makes me think of someone who's very healing, someone who's very good at healing other people, healing themselves, someone who is, especially when it comes to dark wounds, which, we might, it might manifest in literal physical wounds in your life, pile 3. But I think with the dark wound, that speaks to more of the way of healing emotional, mental wounds in other people. So you yeah, you might technically be good at taking care of other people in terms of their health and in terms of, their nurturing, but you're more a nurturer of the mind and the heart than I think you are in the physical, okay? Also, your ability to let go, your ability to go with the flow, your ability to let live. I think you're maybe a bit more easygoing than most people, because literally the whole imagery here is of someone releasing, of letting go of the fish. Like, well, I can catch another one someday, or, well, I don't need that anymore, I'll let the fish go back to the pond. Beautiful. The ability to go with the flow, letting the fish go. Okay, let's look at your other cards. And today we're actually going to start with Oracle instead of Tarot. Typically I do the opposite, but we're going to do Oracle today for this particular reading. So, Spirit, anything else you want to say about the gifts Pile 3 should appreciate about themselves more, or things that they do that are more noteworthy? I can't talk today. Noteworthy. That's what I wanted to say. More noteworthy than they expect. What do they overlook in their self? I also, I'm hearing something about emotional health. You're really good with your being in tune with your emotions and honoring them. I don't think you just stuff them down like a lot of people do, Pile 3. Which is also a strength. You should pat yourself on the back more. We have the Avenger. Okay, a little bit of a superhero vibe here. Light attributes. We won't talk about the shadow just because this is like a reading about what's good about, what you do. Light attributes says, desire to balance the scales of justice, righteousness on behalf of society or oneself. Okay, we have a justice-oriented person. Maybe you're a Libra, not sure. Libras are always very justice-oriented. Balancing the scales, righteousness, both for yourself and for others. And then your second card here is, interesting, we've got the Destroyer, though. Light attributes, releasing what is potentially destructive. Look at that, pile number 3. We have a synchronicity, releasing. Your pile leader says, release the dark wound. So does Destroyer, saying, releasing what is potentially destructive, preparing for new life. Yes, you're very good about releasing things, pile 3. Most people are not good about that. Most people hang on to things far longer than, is healthy. Most people maybe hold on to grudges, or they hold on to old wounds, or they hold on to things that don't serve them anymore. But you, pile 3, maybe through a lot of experience where you have held on to wounds and you learn not to anymore, or maybe through past life experience too. Sometimes our experience comes through different incarnations rather than this particular form on Earth, right? But either way, you're someone who's good about letting go. And 2, I think that's where you shine in terms of how you help other people. You're good about having them let go and release too. Maybe even especially where it comes to things of injustice or matters regarding injustice or righteousness. Now that doesn't mean not helping them get their justice, because you are justice oriented, I'm hearing here from these cards, but in areas of life where healing is needed through the action of letting go, I think you shine in the way you help other people heal that way. And then it's interesting too, because we have the volcano, and the volcano, pile 3, as we all know, is, yes, very destructive. We think of it spewing magma everywhere, everything's on fire, blah, scream. But it also creates life, because what do volcanoes do? Look at, Hawaii, for example, or other volcanic islands and peninsulas. It creates land. It begins new land from the power of destruction. It's almost like the phoenix in terms of setting itself on fire to create ashes that begin anew. Okay, so maybe you've had a lot of times in your life where you have been a phoenix, pile 3. You've had to everything burn down to the ashes, and you've been very good about creating new life from what you thought was dead. Maybe you're really good about creating things where it feels like other people would look at it and be like, no, there's nothing there. It's just wasteland. It's just, there's nothing, fertile there. But you look, pile 3, and you see it clearer. You're like, you know what? There's an opportunity there that other people are missing. And that too, with the way that you're able to be open-minded and go with the flow, and your ability to release things, to let go, is, I think, you have this innate understanding of the cycles of life in terms of give and take. Life gives, life takes away, vice versa. What goes up comes down. What dies is reborn, and what is born eventually dies. You have an inherent understanding of that from a very, it almost kind of feels very Buddhist in terms of the acceptance of it. Like, oh, here's the acceptance of life. Well, that's just how life is. So you have that very grounded, down-to-earth energy, I feel like, too, pile 3, where you're just like, well, that's the way the life goes, you know? But not in a heartless, callous way. I mean, if someone came to you with a problem, you wouldn't be like, well, that's just how life goes, right? You know, you'd be more in the way of soothing them through the wisdom of understanding the cycles of life. Okay, especially when you help them see the light on the other side of the darkness of, yes, you've lost, but that also means, or doesn't mean, that you can't gain again in the future. Things like that. Very, very beautiful symbolism here, pile 3. You have an innate wisdom when it comes to the cycles of life. That's something you should appreciate more about yourself. And your Avenger thing here too. Maybe you're drawn to superhero movies. Maybe that's something that you're very into. Marvel, you know, DC, etc. Someone who does fight for others in terms of what is just and what is right. So even though you go with the flow, you're not go with the flow and let people walk all over you or walk over other people. You're go with the flow and justice for yourself and others. So also cherish your sense of justice, pile 3. Please do. You've got that protective energy. Then we have, she who is wild, sauvage, untamed, wild, and mysterious. Yes, speaking of being innately understanding of the cycles of life, you are comfortable with the unknown. You are comfortable with mystery. Now, you might like mysteries, pile 3, because of their inherent value in it's something to chase. It's a mystery to solve. It's an unknown to plunge into, to delve into, like an adventure of the mind. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you're uncomfortable with it. A lot of people are uncomfortable with mystery. A lot of people are uncomfortable with unknowns. A lot of people want to fill in the blocks of life like a coloring book. They're like, oh, well, you know, I got to put this color here and this color there, and I want it to be clear. You, pile 3, are open to the possibilities. So you should appreciate yourself more for the way that you are comfortable with the unknown. 2, linking that back to your pile leader with, you know, being kind of between life and death, same thing. Mediumship, you're uncomfortable with the unknown. A lot of people look at death and they're very scared. You, pile 3, I think you look at it and you understand it more innately than a lot of people do. You're like, oh, well, yeah, it's kind of an unknown, sort of, because of the haze and the fog of living in a 3D material body that, you know, naturally takes away a bit of our understanding of the other side, at least, you know, most of the time, unless we delve into it, unless we understand it, right? And I think you do a lot, pile 3. But even the things you don't understand, you're like, well, that's just the grand mystery of life. You're comfortable with that uncertainty. And that also makes you resilient, because really what resilience is, pile number 3, is your ability to cope with uncertainty, at least in my opinion. Maybe you've had to be very resilient in your life so far. Maybe you've gone through a lot of tough times where resilience was key to your survival or key to coping. And so you own that ability to be okay with not knowing how the next day would go, being okay with not knowing where the path leads, but just knowing one step at a time, this is where I need to follow. Guiding footsteps by footsteps with intuition. Okay, and also the untamed, the wild. You march to the beat of your own drum, pile 3. That's another thing you should appreciate about yourself. You don't always follow what other people say. You don't follow peer pressure. You don't follow what society tells you to do, blah. You don't need it. You're like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to do my own thing, right? But that makes you stand out, and it's something to appreciate about yourself, pile 3, because a lot of times, in order to help others break free from those pressures that, you know, sometimes societal pressure is good, but sometimes it's bad. You know, we all know different examples throughout history of both opposites, right? And you help people through example of saying it's okay to walk a little bit on the wild side, on the undefined side of life. It's okay to not live life exactly the way that everybody else does. It's okay to be untamed. Maybe you're even drawn to nature and the wild, too. We have a lot of kind of nature imagery, too, here in this picture of all the cards coming out. I mean, the volcano, very natural image. The crow, the green colors, the sauvage. being wild, the woman releasing the fish and release the dark wound, your pile leader. Another very natural energy here. So you're perhaps someone drawn to the outdoors and nature, probably even animals too. Maybe you find a lot of kindred soul with animals. Okay, let's look at your sacred destiny. Anything else you want to say about what they should appreciate about themselves more? Spirit guides, pile 3. Anything else? Right there, okay. Took me a second. Inner peace. We have fish again. I don't know if you have pet fish, pile 3, or you're really drawn to fish as a favorite animal, favorite symbolism, but you have a lot of fish here. I mean, of course, in your pile leader, but also here we have, it looks like, I think they're koi fish. Correct me if I'm wrong. In a koi pond. Inner peace. You know, it's funny. We were just talking about how comfortable you are with the unknown, and then we have the card Inner Peace pop out. So I apologize. It's a bit repetitive, pile 3, but what they're saying is you have an inherent calmness to you because of your okayness with the unknown, because of the way that you navigate life, not needing a map. Which is funny, I say that because literally there's a map on the Avengers cape in that card. Just realized that. Okay. Not needing a map. I wonder if a lot of you like to travel too. I feel like, or if not travel, you're very interested in other cultures. At least, if you haven't physically traveled a lot. It's that open-mindedness perspective, I think, that leads into that too. You're very open-minded because you like to see life from different perspectives, especially culturally. Some of you might especially have, I don't know why, but I'm specifically hearing an interest in like Asian cultures, Asian philosophies. Of course, we talked about Buddhism just a second ago, but I want to say Southeast Asia for some reason. I know I just talked about koi, which I think are technically Japanese, but it should be East Asian, right? But it's like Southeast Asia. What countries are in this map here? One second. Well, there's America, Canada. Sorry, I'm looking at it off screen here. America, Canada, there's South America here. So specifically, those were also countries or continents brought up, but specifically I'm hearing Asia for some reason for a lot of you. Maybe you resonate a lot with Asian spirituality, Asian philosophy, cultural philosophy on life. But that is coming forward quite prominently, whether you were raised in it or not. Let's take a gander at your tarot cards. Spirit, anything else you want to say about pile 3? I also am hearing intuitively you are an anchor in the storm for a lot of other people too. Because of your innate peacefulness, because of the way... You're very zen, pile 3. You're very zen. And I think that reaches out to other people because, a lot of people go through life very worried and chaotic and... Where am I going? I need a map for this. And you're just like, let's just go with the flow. It's like, I apologize that's repetitive, but it's like that go with the flow energy I was just talking about earlier. So you help other people calm down too. We have, yes, the 3 of Pentacles. Makes tons of sense. We'll talk about that in a moment. We have the Queen of Wands. Speaking of fire. Fire like the volcano. Okay. And then we have the Devil reversed. Yes. Okay. Also very synchronicity, or synchronous. That's the word I want to use. I can't talk today. Synchronous with what I was saying before about you marching to the beat of your own drum, helping other people free themselves. Ace of Pentacles. Ooh, you're very savvy. Street smart, too. I can tell you that. And the 4 of Wands. What's beautiful here, pile 3. You are the only pile today that didn't have any reversals that were pieces of advice. You have all upright positive cards. So you know what? In terms of what you appreciate about yourself, I think compared to the other piles, not to knock on them, but you compared to the other piles are very good about noticing and appreciating things about yourself. However, you came to this reading for a reason. So I will describe everything with the tarot cards, but the fact that you didn't get any negative reversals makes me think you don't have any like glaring blind spots in terms of things that you should know or appreciate about yourself more. But okay, let's explain. Number 1, you have lots of pentacles. We have the 3 of Pentacles as well as the Ace of Pentacles. It speaks of a lot of earth energy. You do have 2 wands too, though. You have a balance of earth and fire. That is the wand suit element in tarot. So just like where earth meets fire, what is that but a volcano? So creation and destruction at the same time. Although sometimes we associate fire with creation too, and earth with destruction. So you are very good about balancing those 2 elements. Passion with the material world. You're probably very good about combining your passions with the way that you go about seeking your security in life. Maybe you're someone that lives, like you have a career that's very oriented towards what you're passionate about, I guess is another way to say that. So you should pat yourself on the back for that more too, because a lot of people in life don't do that. And I say that as someone that, the very beginning of my adulthood, I didn't follow my passion. I followed something else, and it blew up in my face. We won't talk about that too much, but I mean, there's pros and cons, don't get me wrong, but as someone that has lived some of my life not following what was true to my soul, I can tell you should admire that about yourself more, that you do follow the trueness of your soul, what you're really passionate about, okay? That's a rare quality. A lot of people made the same mistake that I did, and a lot of people just do it their whole entire lives, not following their passion, not doing what they really care about, okay? You live very true to your soul. That's a good way to put it. Very, with a lot of integrity to your spirit. It's another good keyword phrase to use. Beautifully, we have the 3 of Pentacles. To start, we have the card of teamwork. You're very good about working with other people. You're a connector of people, especially when it comes to career. I think you're a good team player, to use, the common corporate term. Great team player with other people. Very awesome about getting along with other people. I think, as I said, maybe you've lived a life with a lot of different perspectives before. That's why you're so open-minded, why you're so go with the flow. I think that helps you reaching other people. Queen of Wands, Queen of Confidence, baby. We have someone that is charismatic, someone who is passionate. Like I was saying before, you live your life very passionately, following that passion, that fire of yourself. It's also in the feminine way, being the queen. So she's someone that is very true to who she is on the inside. She's not afraid to, as I said, with Sauvage, not afraid to march to the beat of her own drum. Okay, so appreciate yourself for that more too. Devil reversed is beautiful. That's kind of similar to that message of how you help other people not succumb to the pressures of society too much either, because the Devil reversed is about freeing yourself from a cage, freeing yourself from, and that cage can mean many different things. It can mean vices, addictions. Maybe you help people overcome addictions, or if that's not your job, you'd be very good at it if you don't do it already. It can also mean helping people from the cage of other things that are fierce, as we were talking about, like, they don't follow their passion because a lot of people don't do it out of fear, right? And so you help them break that feeling like they have to go along with what other people say, or they have to go along with what society says is best. You're really, what you are is a key to the cages that other people put themselves in. That's how I would describe that in one phrase with the Devil reverse. So pat yourself on the back more for that, pile 3. Then we have the Ace of Pentacles. Street smart was the first thing that came up, but also, when I was drawing it, but also someone that is very good about seeing opportunities where they are. Okay, someone that's very good about looking for opportunities. Also probably money savvy, probably pretty good with finances too. Someone who is, because the Ace of Pentacles, pile 3, is new opportunities in terms of career and finance. You might also find that you have jumped from career to career a lot, just out of curiosity, or out of, I'm interested in this part of my life, and then maybe the next decade or a few years you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to go do this now. You don't feel like someone that likes to get caged in one particular area of life. And I think that's because you are so good about following your passions and being unashamed about it. So that's also good, pile 3. And then we have the 4 of Wands at the very end, celebration. Also the card of happiness and stability in the home. Okay, very good with your home, very good with harmony in the home, inspiring that harmony. Speaking of inner peace, that's another way that might manifest there with the 4 of Wands at the end next to inner peace. And it's just a card of being comfortable. You're very comfortable in yourself, and you're very comfortable with the way life is, as we were talking about earlier with the messages about being comfortable with going with the flow and not needing a map, and the cycles of life in different ways. So yeah, overall, pile 3, just pat yourself on the back more for all of these qualities, for your zen-ness, for perhaps mediumship abilities, your ability to walk the line between life and death in a very comfortable way, accepting the way things are, but not being afraid to break the chains of these structures put around us to cage us, and helping other people free themselves from those same cages. Justice and righteousness too. You have a very good sense there. You need to appreciate more. As we said, your teamwork, your confidence, your charisma. That's another thing. Maybe you don't think you're very charismatic, pile 3, but with all these fire cards, I mean, and the way that you march to the beat of your own drum, same thing. Very charismatic. I think people look up to you and are inspired by you a lot more than you realize or recognize. And I think, too, one last message they want to send is they're saying something about you're really good about helping people end toxic or negative cycles in their own life and starting anew. Like, you're really good about helping people jump over that leap of faith of, you know how oftentimes people will kind of think, oh, well, the devil I know is better than the devil I don't. You're someone that helps them, speaking of the devil card reversed, you're someone that helps them see through the illogic of that. You help people see the possibility of better beyond their current state or circumstances, and you help them feel confident enough to make that leap to get there, to what is better. Or if you don't do that already, you'd be very good at that, pile number 3, in terms of, like, if we were talking about, like, careers and whatnot. So just gorgeous energy overall. As I said, very balanced earth and fire. Good about manifesting, but also charismatic and confident and passionate about it. Passion was another keyword that was often repeated with your reading today. So there you go, pile number 3. That's what you should appreciate about yourself more, gifts that you don't appreciate enough. So, of course, as I always say, I hope that you liked the reading. It was helpful. It resonated with you. If so, please like the video. Please comment down below your story. I love hearing your feedback and how it resonated, as well as please subscribe to Lone Pine Tarot if you haven't done so already. Just that tiny button click helps me a lot more than you know, and I appreciate it so much when you do subscribe, so thank you if you choose to do so. And as we always say in our tradition, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next reading. Bye, pile 3.